Medieval Titans Unleashed, the Polar Bear vs. Griffin Saga. Beneath a sky streaked with the pale hues of early dawn, where wisps of fog clung to rugged, frost-bitten battlements and the distant toll of a castle bell echoed across the frozen wastes. A realm of myth and legend stirred with life. This was a land where the raw majesty of nature intertwined with the chivalric spirit of medieval lore, a realm where every gust of icy wind carried the whispers of ancient heroes. And every sunlit shard of snow was a silent testament to battles long past. Here, upon a vast, undulating plain of glistening ice and deep, mysterious forests, the eternal struggle between two titanic forces was about to unfold, a struggle that would forever etch its saga into the annals of legend. In the heart of this enchanted domain roamed a colossal polar bear, a creature as old as the glaciers and as fierce as the northern storm. Its immense frame, cloaked in a mantle of thick, pure white fur, was sculpted by nature's most ruthless trials. With every powerful step it took, the ground trembled, and a deep, resonant echo rippled across the snowy expanse, a reminder that this was no ordinary beast, but a living embodiment of the wild, untamed spirit of the frozen north. The bear's eyes, dark and penetrating as the depths of a midnight lake, held the wisdom of countless winters and the ferocity of a warrior who had long mastered the art of survival. It was a creature defined by its raw physical power, a force capable of overwhelming any adversary in close combat with a single crushing bite or a swift, deadly swipe of its massive claws. High above this realm of ice, where the crisp air shimmers with the promise of dawn, soared a creature of mythic renown, the Griffin. Born of legends and revered in the noble tales of medieval Europe, the Griffin was a majestic hybrid whose very form defied the boundaries of nature. With the powerful, sinewy body of a lion and the noble head, keen eyes, and mighty wings of an eagle, this regal beast was often hailed as the king of all creatures. Its muscular form rippled with strength and agility, while its wings, broad and resplendent, carried it effortlessly through the skies. The Griffin's piercing gaze, set beneath a regal brow, held an intelligence and ferocity that made it both a symbol of divine nobility and a formidable warrior in battle. Adorned with the natural splendor of golden feathers that caught the light like shimmering banners in a gentle breeze, and a lion's mane that flowed like the tapestry of a bygone era, the Griffin was as much an emblem of celestial majesty as it was of lethal power. It was on one fateful morning, when the world itself seemed to hold its breath in anticipation, that destiny wove together the paths of these two magnificent beings. The polar bear, ever vigilant as the guardian of its frozen dominion, had roamed far beyond its familiar haunts, compelled by an unshakable intuition, a sense that something extraordinary was about to intrude upon its realm. Its massive paws, calloused and sure-footed on the treacherous ice, left deep impressions upon the land, marking the bear's relentless pursuit of both sustenance and honor. The creature moved with the deliberate grace of a seasoned warrior, every muscle and sinew attuned to the unspoken rhythm of the wilderness. It was a silent force, a living monument to the purity and brutality of nature, and its every breath was a declaration of life in defiance of the relentless winter. Far overhead, the Griffin soared amidst a sky that burned with the colors of early sunrise, vivid streaks of amber, crimson, and gold that danced in harmonious contrast with the cool blues of the fading night. The creature's flight was an art form, a display of aerial mastery that was both elegant and predatory. With each powerful beat of its expansive wings, the Griffin carved a majestic arc across the heavens, leaving trails of shimmering light in its wake like ribbons of ancient heraldry. It circled high above the frozen landscape, its keen eyes scanning the terrain below with an intensity that betrayed its royal lineage and its inherent desire for conquest. In the myriad reflections of the rising sun on the ice, the Griffin's silhouette appeared both ethereal and unstoppable, a herald of change, of conflict, and of the eternal clash between the terrestrial and the celestial. The convergence of these two titanic forces was as inevitable as the turning of the seasons. In the days preceding their fateful encounter, legends had already begun to circulate among the noble courts and rustic hamlets scattered across the kingdom. Bards and minstrels spoke in hushed, reverent tones of a prophecy, a foretold clash between the indomitable strength of the frozen wild and the soaring majesty of the mythic skies. These tales, steeped in the romance and grandeur of medieval tradition, painted a vivid picture of a battle that would reshape the destiny of the land. Emblazoned on ancient banners and etched into the time-worn stone of castle walls were the symbols of these two archetypes, the fearsome visage of the polar bear, a testament to nature's ruthless power, and the proud, regal countenance of the griffin, a living emblem of noble valor and divine protection. As the first light of day began to gild the horizon, the polar bear advanced steadily across a barren, frost-covered plain. Its path was deliberate and resolute, a journey marked by the crunch of snow under enormous, powerful paws and the low, rumbling echoes of its deep, guttural growl, a sound that spoke of a lifetime spent battling the harsh elements and countless adversaries. The air was crisp and clean, carrying with it the faint scent of pine and the invigorating chill of the open wilderness. The bear's eyes, unblinking and filled with quiet determination, focused on the distant silhouettes of ancient ruins, remnants of a once mighty civilization that had long since succumbed to the relentless passage of time. It was in these silent, forgotten places that nature's raw power had always prevailed over the fleeting constructs of man. Above, the griffin's flight was a graceful ballet against the backdrop of a sky awakening with the promise of a new day. The creature's powerful wings beat in a rhythm that was both measured and majestic, each stroke propelling it further into the heart of the kingdom. Its eyes, sharp as the keenest blade, observed the land with a discerning gaze, searching for any sign of weakness or opportunity. There was a regal air to the griffin's movements, a sense that it was both a guardian and a conqueror, destined to assert its dominance over the vast, untamed wilderness below. In the quiet moments between its soaring flights, the griffin would descend to perch upon ancient stone parapets or the crumbling walls of long-abandoned fortresses, where it would rest and survey the realm with an air of contemplative nobility. The stage was set for an encounter that would transcend the ordinary, a moment when the very elements of the earth and sky converged in a dance of destiny and defiance. In a clearing bordered by towering pines laden with snow and ancient oaks whose gnarled branches reached skyward like the fingers of forgotten deities, the polar bear paused. Its gaze, both fierce and contemplative, swept across the expanse of white, as though it could sense the approaching storm of fate. The silence of the forest was profound, a hushed expectancy that seemed to permeate every leaf, every icicle glistening in the pale light of dawn. It was as if nature itself were aware that the balance of power was about to be challenged by a force as wild and unpredictable as it was majestic. High above this enchanted clearing, the griffin circled in a wide, graceful arc. Its shadow, dark and imposing, passed over the snow like a fleeting omen, and its cry, a piercing, noble call, echoed across the valley, stirring the very air with its haunting melody. In that moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, suspended between the promise of victory and the threat of devastation. The polar bear and the griffin, each a titan in its own right, were drawn inexorably toward one another by forces older than memory, by the timeless pulse of nature and myth that bound them in a silent covenant of conflict. Then, with the inevitability of a celestial alignment, the moment arrived. The griffin, driven by a combination of regal audacity and the predatory instinct of a born hunter, began its descent, with a series of powerful wingbeats that stirred up swirling clouds of snow and mist. The majestic creature veered sharply from its lofty course, diving toward the ground with the speed and precision of a falling star. Its eyes, alight with determination and a hint of fierce pride, locked onto the massive form of the polar bear as it navigated the air with predatory grace. The griffin's beak, curved and razor-sharp, a tool honed by the instincts of a celestial predator, was drawn into a determined focus, aimed at striking with lethal precision. The polar bear, its senses honed by countless battles and its every instinct alert to the shifting currents of danger, detected the griffin's rapid approach. A low, resonant growl emanated from deep within its chest, a sound that was both a challenge and a rallying cry to the very spirit of the wilderness. The bear's massive form tensed, muscles coiling like ancient springs as it prepared to react. In that split second, time seemed to slow to an almost surreal crawl. The world narrowed to a single point of convergence, where the ferocity of nature was about to collide with the nobility of myth. As the griffin swooped lower, its wings beating a fierce cadence against the still morning air. The polar bear surged forward with an explosive burst of primal energy. Its powerful limbs propelled it into motion with a fluid, yet thunderous grace that belied its enormous size. The bear's eyes, filled with unwavering resolve, fixed on the descending Griffin, gauging the precise moment to counter the aerial assault. In a heart-stopping instant, the Griffin, with all the majesty of its storied heritage, made its daring plunge, a calculated, lethal dive meant to deliver a decisive blow. Its talons, sharp and glistening like forged steel in the newborn light, were outstretched, poised to grasp the target with a ferocity born of centuries of legendary prowess. The collision that ensued was nothing short of cataclysmic, a convergence of elemental forces that sent shockwaves rippling across the frozen plain. The Griffin's talons, meant to be instruments of swift judgment, sliced through the air as it attempted to seize the polar bear in mid-dive. Simultaneously, the polar bear, with a roar that echoed like thunder over the icy expanse, pivoted with instinctual precision, its enormous paw swung outward in a defiant arc. Its claws extended with the lethal intent of a seasoned warrior determined to neutralize the airborne threat before it could deliver its fatal strike. In that tumultuous moment, the two titans met, a flash of fur and feather, of raw muscle and sharpened talon, locked in an embrace that defied the very laws of nature. The impact was a symphony of sound and fury. The bear's guttural roar, deep and resonant, mingled with the piercing cry of the Griffin, creating a cacophony that reverberated across the medieval battlements and echoed off ancient stone walls. Ice shattered beneath the force of their clash, sending crystalline fragments swirling into the air like 1,000 fleeting stars. For a heartbeat, the world was suspended in a tableau of primal chaos, a moment where the graceful arc of the Griffin's descent was met head-on by the unyielding, earthbound might of the polar bear. Amid the chaos, every detail was magnified in epic clarity. The polar bear's eyes burned with an intensity that spoke of both raw determination and a deep, instinctual understanding of its role as the guardian of the frozen wild. Its massive jaws, designed by nature to crush and dominate, snapped in a bid to seize upon the Griffin's exposed flank. The Griffin, its proud form momentarily caught in the storm of the bear's counterattack, wavered as its talons clawed at the air in a desperate attempt to maintain its aerial advantage. Feathers scattered like embers in a gust of wind, and the Griffin's golden plumage caught the light of dawn in a dazzling display of fiery brilliance even as it struggled against the relentless force of the bear's assault. The medieval landscape itself seemed to pulse with the intensity of the battle. In the distance, the ruins of a long-forgotten castle, its stone walls draped in ivy and adorned with faded heraldry, stood as silent witnesses to the ancient conflicts of yore. Tattered banners flapped in the bitter wind, their faded crests evoking the honor and valor of knights and kings who had once roamed these lands. The very earth, scarred by the passage of time and the relentless assault of nature's fury, bore testament to the struggles that had shaped this realm. Every crack in the frozen ground, every glimmer of ice catching the first light of day, added to the epic tapestry of the confrontation, a living mosaic where the forces of nature and myth intertwined in a dance as old as time itself. In the midst of this maelstrom of clashing titans, the struggle took on a rhythm that was both brutal and beautiful. The polar bear, seizing upon a fleeting opportunity, lunged sideways with astonishing agility, a calculated maneuver designed to intercept the Griffin's descent. Its powerful claws, honed over generations of survival in the unforgiving Arctic, arched through the air in a sweeping motion, aiming to ensnare the Griffin before it could complete its lethal dive. The Griffin, sensing the impending threat with the acute perception that had earned it a place among the legends of old, twisted gracefully in midair. With a final, desperate burst of aerial prowess, it attempted to realign its trajectory, its sharp beak angling toward a vulnerable spot along the bear's massive flank. The moment was charged with a tension so profound that even the ancient trees lining the forest edge seemed to lean in, as if to catch a glimpse of fate's unfolding decree. For what felt like an eternity compressed into a single, pulsating heartbeat, the two forces remained locked in their eternal struggle. The polar bear's sinewy muscles tensed and contracted, each fiber of its being focused on the singular goal of subduing this majestic, yet audacious, Adversary. The Griffin's eyes, twin beacons of noble fire, shone with a fierce defiance that spoke of countless battles fought in the name of honor and survival. And all around them, the medieval world, its weathered stones, its ancient banners, its whispered legends, stood in silent witness to the clash of two living symbols, the raw, unbridled power of nature, and the sublime, transcendent grace of myth. Then, as the battle reached its zenith, a decisive moment emerged, a fleeting, yet monumental, instant that would determine the fate of these titanic combatants. With a mighty surge of raw strength and instinct, the polar bear managed to close the distance between itself and the descending griffin. In a breathtaking display of ferocity, it extended its massive jaws and powerful paws, seeking to capture the airborne predator in a grip that would seal its destiny. The griffin, caught in the turbulent vortex of battle, reacted with a swift, desperate counter. Its talons, like blades forged in the fires of ancient forges, lashed out in an attempt to tear through the bear's defenses, while its beak, gleaming with the promise of lethal precision, aimed to puncture the bear's thick, resilient hide. The ensuing collision was a cataclysm of violence and splendor, a moment when the very essence of the medieval world was distilled into a single, incandescent burst of life and struggle. The polar bear's raw power, embodied in every bite and every swipe, met the griffin's aerial might with a force that seemed to suspend time itself. The sound of their impact, a blend of guttural roars, the clash of stone-like hide, and the rhythmic beat of wings, filled the air, resonating across the frozen plain and echoing through the corridors of ancient castles. Ice and snow were thrown into disarray, creating a swirling maelstrom of frost and feathers, as the two adversaries locked in combat became a living testament to the eternal dance of conflict and valor. In the aftermath of the titanic struggle, as the dust and flurries of battles slowly settled over the scarred landscape, both the polar bear and the griffin stood battered and weary, a poignant tableau of the inexorable cost of war. The polar bear, its mighty form marked by deep gashes and splintered fur, exhaled a low, rumbling breath that mingled with the cold air, a sound that was both a victory cry and a lament for the toll exacted by such fierce combat. High above, the griffin, its once pristine plumage now ruffled and stained by the remnants of battle, circled slowly in the pale light of dawn. There was a look of solemn determination in its eyes, a silent vow that, despite the wounds sustained, its noble spirit would endure, and it would rise again to reclaim the skies as the eternal monarch of myth. As the medieval day advanced, the battlefield transformed into a hallowed ground, a place where the legends of old were born anew with every whisper of the wind and every flicker of light on shattered ice. The ruins of ancient fortresses, their crumbling stone walls etched with the scars of time and conflict, provided a somber backdrop to the epic tale unfolding upon the frozen plain. Banners bearing faded heraldry fluttered in the gentle breeze, as if paying homage to the valor of those who had once fought and died for ideals that now echoed through the ages. It was a scene both timeless and transient, a moment suspended between the harsh realities of the natural world and the transcendent allure of myth. In the quiet that followed the fierce confrontation, the polar bear began its slow, measured retreat into the labyrinth of the frozen forest, a domain where it could lick its wounds and reflect upon the monumental clash that had just taken place. Each heavy step it took was accompanied by the soft crunch of snow and the distant, melancholic call of a lone bird, a sound that seemed to mourn the passing of another chapter in the eternal saga of life and legend. Meanwhile, the griffin ascended once more into the vast expanse of the sky, its wings beating a steady rhythm against the gentle caress of the morning air. Its eyes, though dimmed by the battle's ferocity, still shone with the fierce light of hope and determination, a reminder that the spirit of the mythical king of beasts could never be truly vanquished. In the days that followed, the tale of the epic confrontation spread like a timeless ballad throughout the kingdom. In the great halls of medieval castles, where torches burned brightly against the encroaching gloom of winter, minstrels and storytellers recounted the saga of the polar bear and the griffin with reverence and awe. Their voices, rich with the cadence of ancient lore, painted vivid portraits of the battle, a clash not merely of flesh and feather, but of ideals and forces that transcended mortal comprehension. The polar bear, with its unyielding strength and resolute presence, became a symbol of nature's raw, unadulterated might, a guardian whose every step echoed the legacy of survival against insurmountable odds. The Griffin, on the other hand, emerged as a beacon of noble grace and predatory majesty, a creature whose soaring flight and indomitable spirit encapsulated the lofty ideals of chivalry and the eternal quest for honor. Scholars of lore and practitioners of the arcane soon took note of the significance of this legendary clash. In hidden chambers lined with ancient manuscripts and illuminated by the flickering glow of enchanted candles, sages debated the deeper symbolism of the encounter. They pondered the eternal conflict between the tangible power of the natural world and the ethereal majesty of myth, an age-old dichotomy that had, in this instance, been embodied by two living titans. Some argued that the polar bear's steadfast might was a testament to the enduring force of the earth itself, a power that, though finite and bound by the cycles of nature, was as formidable as the cold, unyielding grip of winter. Others believed that the griffin's ability to soar above the mundane, to harness the limitless expanse of the heavens, was emblematic of an ideal that transcended physical limitations, a symbol of the boundless potential of the human spirit when inspired by the tales of old. Amid these scholarly debates and the echoing praises of bards, the memory of that fateful clash continued to inspire awe among all who heard its tale. Over time, the story of the polar bear versus the griffin became more than just a recounting of a battle. It evolved into a living myth, a narrative that captured the imagination of a people yearning for a connection to a past where honor, valor, and the inexorable forces of nature reigned supreme. In every whispered recounting by a wandering minstrel, in every ornate tapestry woven in the great halls of noble families, and in every statue erected in the honor of heroes long departed, the epic duel was immortalized, a testament to the enduring legacy of a clash that bridged the gap between the mortal realm and the timeless domain of myth. Even as the seasons turned and the frozen land began its slow transformation into the verdant promise of spring, the scars of battle remained etched into the very soul of the kingdom. The battlefield, now a silent monument to the epic struggle, stood as a reminder of the price paid by those who dared to challenge fate. The polar bear's massive pawprints, embedded deep in the ice, were revered as sacred symbols of nature's relentless might, while the remnants of the griffin's once glorious plumage, now scattered like relics upon the snowy ground, served as enduring emblems of a noble spirit that refused to be subdued. Thus, as dusk fell upon the medieval realm and the stars emerged to cast their gentle glow over the quiet ruins and frost-laden forests, the legend of the polar bear versus the griffin continued to resonate in the hearts and minds of all who dwelled in that enchanted land. It was a story of contrasts and conflicts, a saga of earth and sky, of mortal strength and divine grace, a tale that reminded every soul of the eternal dance between power and honor, between the resolute spirit of the natural world and the lofty aspirations of myth. And in that eternal dance, in every roaring wind and every quiet snowfall, the legacy of that epic confrontation was etched forever into the tapestry of time. A beacon of inspiration for all who dared to dream of a world where legends walked among men. In the soft glow of the moonlit night, as the medieval banners swayed gently atop crumbling towers and the distant strains of a lone bard's melody floated on the cool breeze, one truth remained clear. The saga of the polar bear and the griffin was not destined to fade into obscurity. It was a tale that transcended the mere physicality of combat, a living, breathing narrative that celebrated the eternal spirit of resistance and the boundless potential of myth. For in every clash of titanic forces, in every moment of defiant struggle against overwhelming odds, there lay the promise of a new dawn, a promise that, regardless of the outcome of any battle, the indomitable spirit of life would always endure. And so, beneath the vast, star-studded canopy of a medieval sky, where every flicker of light and every shadow cast upon the ancient stone whispered the secrets of forgotten ages, the legend of the polar bear versus the griffin lived on. It became a timeless ode to the beauty of opposition, a tribute to the unyielding strength of nature, and an eternal reminder that even in the harshest, most unforgiving of worlds, the light of honor, valor, and myth burns ever bright.